to the public who are here. We hope that you will be able to hear and see everything that people have to say this evening. And at this point, I'm calling the meeting to order. Only our board members may participate in discussions and votes tonight. And I want to run through the rules of the road before we do a roll call. These are the same rules.
Are we recording?
Oh, I don't know what.
Yes.
Okay, these are the same rules we've been using. I want to ask all of you to be courteous to each other and be patient while we are on Zoom. I don't always see the hands as fast as you might put them up, but I do check and I will call on everybody. Then use your blue hands if you want to be heard unless otherwise indicated. At the end of the evening, we're going to talk about the audit, and I have a list of everybody's names, and I'm going to call people from the list, so you don't need to raise your hands then, but you'll need to raise them during the rest of the meeting. I want to remind everybody that the chair is empowered to make the rules about how the meeting is conducted, and we have Steve and Sam to address Robert Rules of Order and our own bylaws should we need them. They are our kindness and rules advisors. If you talk over the chair or any other member without being called on, you'll be warned that doing so is disruptive behavior. With a second warning, you'll be removed from the meeting. We need to make sure that people are treated fairly and get a chance to comment without anybody else interrupting them. Okay, so that's our call to order. And Sylvia, do you want to, Janet, do you want to do a roll call of whom is present?
Sure, yeah. I have so far present Leslie Hammond, Steve Mullinax, Sam Pearson, Teddy O, Janet H, Katie Daly, Arnold Creek. Katie's here.
Oh, do you want us to say something? I thought you were just naming us off.
I'll name you off, and then there's a couple of folks I haven't seen yet, so I'll probably wait for them to call themselves. Bruce Kester is here. And Bridal Mile, do we have Becky Lilliquist?
I don't see her yet on the participants list.
Okay.
I can see, make sure she's not waiting room.
I'll put a question mark. I see Fran Laird. Hi, Fran. And Crestwood, we're going to have Marianne Fitzgerald. Has Marianne joined us?
She hasn't yet, but she's coming.
Yeah, she's there.
She's here. Good. Sorry,
Great.
Marianne.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you. Far Southwest, we have George Branos.
Right.
Hayhurst, Kendall Kick, Hillsdale, do we have Tatiana? Tatiana's
I don't
not yet
hear, but I don't see her yet.
Okay. And Homestead, we have Jackie Phillips.
Here.
Maplewood, is Claire Carter here?
I don't see.
I don't see Claire.
I don't see her yet.
Okay, I'll just make a note. Markham, Eric Levacki. I don't think Eric is here. And Marshall Park, Michelle Campbell. Is Michelle?
It's Mike Charles.
Mike Charles is
Mike,
here.
Mike Charles is here for Michelle.
Gotcha. That's right.
Mike.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay. Great. Let me write that down. Sorry, didn't have that. Great. Maria T. Mai is here with Multnomah. South Berlin. Great. South Burlingame. I saw Shannon Hiller Webb. Great. South Portland, Anna Friedhoff. Is Anna with us? Okay. And I'll come back to Swirl with Charlie when he joins. West Portland Park, Debbie Hall.
I don't see her yet.
Okay. And I saw Diane Victoria with Equity and Inclusion, Land Use Committee. Yeah, so Diane Victoria, Gary Rundy.
Tatiana just joined us. Tatiana.
I'm sorry,
did. Tatiana.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We have Land Use with Gary Rundy. Saw Gary. Parks, Leslie Pohl. Is Leslie here this evening?
I don't see her.
Okay. Yeah, Leslie's had been attending for Mike Lindman. Safety will be Kim Silverman when she joins us. Schools, Patty McMahon.
She's here.
Oh, Patty's here. Okay.
Yeah.
Transportation, I saw Catherine Christensen. And, hi. And I saw Watershed with Murphy Terrell. And I saw Hillsdale Business Association with Don Bach. So we have a quorum present.
We do. Thank you very
And I
much.
do have guests. Can I go through the guest list
Yes,
here?
please.
I have Lee Bueller is here, Laura Campos, Marie Tyval, and Courtney Vaughn. Is there another guest whom I haven't called? Any other guests present? Great, I guess not. Okay,
Let me
thank you.
go through the list.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other guests. I think just the four. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Sylvia, can you put our agenda up? The first thing on our agenda is to approve the agenda. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
And a second? That's Tatiana moved it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Steve
Steve.
seconded. All in favor of the agenda, to approve the agenda, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining?
Muted.
Beg your pardon?
Anybody muted? I didn't hear many
Oh, right. And we're
yeses or no's or anything.
we'll do roll calls on the, votes that, but approving the agenda seems like we could do it as a voice vote. Sounds like the agenda is approved. We eliminated the executive session today because there are other matters that came forward that we thought would take precedence. We can put that on the agenda on the 30th of November, which is our special meeting in 2 weeks. So we're going to go to the first executive officer reports. And we'll start with, normally we'd start with me, but what I'd like to do.
Oh, Leslie,
with-
approval of the minutes. Sorry.
Sorry, forgot the minutes. All
That's
right,
okay.
Sylvia, can you put the minutes up?
Yes.
I actually have it in my notes and I skipped right by it.
That's okay. So you'll see highlighted in yellow, Katie Daly was the only board member that contacted Sylvia and I with edits. And we all had a chance to talk on Friday at the executive committee. So you'll see yellow highlights that Sylvia and I put together and Katie agreed to. So you'll see just a little bit of a change. And these have been posted, I think, since Friday. So, Sylvia,
Right.
is that correct?
Mhm.
Great.
I move the approval of the minutes.
Second.
That's Tatiana and Sam who moved and
Okay.
seconded.
Thank you.
All right, let's do a roll call, Janet, on the minutes.
Okay, first vote, approval of the minutes. Steve Mullinex,
Yes.
Sam Pearson,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
and Janet is a yes. Katie,
Yes.
Bruce Kester,
I just
Yeah,
have a
Bruce.
I'm sorry, I just got on mute. I got a quick question. On page 5 of that, talking about the letter we sent, it said that neighborhood associations can get free park access. I don't think that's accurate, for what that's worth. And then I'll prove it.
I wasn't at the meeting, but I think you're right, Bruce. Does anybody object to changing this to say
Well,
that?
No, I did make a
Wait.
statement. The neighborhood associations are given free use of the park, one for the National Night Out event and one other event.
So
they
you
are-
were listing 3 different ways that the parks were free, is that right?
No, just that the neighborhood associations
Just that-
are given. And so it was
Sylvia, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Okay,
an echo there.
Yeah,
could folks mute their phones and then, Bruce, you were
I
talking.
think somebody's printing or has a creaky chair.
Okay, and most people have not muted their microphones, so if you guys would do that, that will help us.
so Bruce, it sounds like you're a yes with that clarification by Sylvia.
Yes,
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
it was more a question I just had.
Oh, okay, thank you. Is Becky Lilliquist here with Bridal Mile?
I don't think so, but I'm looking through the
Okay.
list. I don't see her.
Okay, Fran Laird,
Yes.
okay. And Marianne, I think would be abstaining on this one.
Yes, I would abstain. Thank you for asking.
Okay,
Abstain.
thank you. Yeah. George Ranos
Yes.
and Kendall Kick,
Yes.
Tatiana. Is Tatiana with us?
Tatiana is with us. Let's see if she's muted.
I am mute. I was muted. I'm sorry. Yes, of course, I moved to approve it.
You did. Jackie Phillips?
I abstained because I did not attend the entire meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Claire Carter, is Claire here with Maplewood?
I don't see her.
Okay, and Eric is not here. Mike Charles, I think Michelle was at that meeting, so I think it would be another abstention. Is that correct?
I was also at the meeting last time, so I'm a yes.
Oh, you're a yes. Okay, thank you. Maria T. Mai
Yes.
and Shannon Hiller Webb.
I agree with Bruce. There was no conversation about anything specific around neighborhood associations' access to parks buildings. So if that's struck, then I will approve.
So you're, it sounds like you're a no then. It's not
Well,
struck at this point.
Is Sylvia saying that that specific use was discussed at the meeting?
It's a
No,
part of the
that's not
language
what
in the
it's
motion.
about. Shannon, if you agree with Bruce's suggested amendment, then you could vote yes. If you do not, you can vote no.
I'm not clear on it, so I'm voting no. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And is Anna here? Anna Friedhoff?
Not yet,
Not yet, okay. And is Charlie here yet? Charlie Van
not
Rossum?
yet.
And Debbie Hall, has Debbie joined us?
I haven't seen Debbie yet.
And Diane Victoria?
I'll abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay, thanks. Gary Rundy?
Yes.
And is Leslie here? Leslie Pohl?
I don't see her.
Yes.
Are you here, Leslie?
Yes.
She is. So are you in support of the minutes, Leslie?
Yes.
He said
Thank you.
yes. Thank you.
Great. And Kim Silverman has not joined us yet, is that correct?
Not yet.
Okay. Patty McMahon?
Patty, you need to unmute.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Catherine Christensen?
Yes.
And Murphy, Terrell?
Yes.
Okay. And Don Bach?
Yes.
And Sylvia and I will count. Sylvia, I have 18 yeses. 3 abstentions. And 1 no.
Why don't we move forward and then I'll give you a moment to make sure your numbers match up. How's that sound?
Okay, that sounds fine.
The next item on our agenda is the president's report, which I'd like to defer to the end when we talk about the audit. So the next report would be from the first vice president, which is Steve Molinex.
Thank you. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to report on this front. The response on the complaint filed by Shannon Hiller Webb and Marie Tyval in court is due on Monday, I'm sorry, on November 20th, and Simon has got responsibility for that. Our insurance is covering our legal fees related to that complaint, less $1,000 deductible. So I think that's all that I have to report. Of course, we'll have more discussion on the audit later in the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Katie, I see your hands up.
Yes, Steve, I asked a question at the last meeting, or I don't know, it all blurs together. Whether or not that you've learned if the insurance company had a cap on the amount that they would pay.
I don't have
Nobody-
an answer to that. Leslie, do you have any more information about that?
I haven't gotten to it. I haven't talked to the insurance agent since Friday. So the answer is we don't know.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to our second vice president, Sam Pearson.
Okay. Hillsdale Neighborhood Association had a grievance filed. That has been appealed to SWNI, which comes under Article 12, Appeals of Grievances to SWNI. The appeal was filed on the 4th of November. Today being the 18th means that we are within compliance of our 14 days after receipt of appeal. We will have a board meeting. The board shall select a dispute resolution committee which shall review the appeal, gather information, and make a timely recommendation to the board. The board shall render a final decision within 60 calendar days from the date of the appeal, and deliberations by the dispute resolution committee on a recommendation and by the board on a decision can and may be held in executive session. At the present date, I have 4 people who have volunteered to be on the dispute resolution committee. And if there's anybody else who would like to be on that committee, I would appreciate if they would speak now.
Well, I could be interested. Do we know generally the subject of the appeal?
At the present time, it was the appeal is made by one person saying that they were not happy with what the Hillsdale Neighborhood Association came forward with in their response. The details at this time, really not something I can go into because typically that's for the dispute resolution committee to look at and review, but there would be a section in the office of SWNI. You'd have to make an appointment to come in to review the articles. It's not something we pass around or bring forward.
Well, you could put me down. I'd be interested.
Okay. Sam, do you want to make a motion with the names of the people so that the board can vote on this?
I have my hand up.
I'm sorry. I'd like to have Sam make the motion and we get a second and then you can ask your question. Sam, do you want to make a motion?
Yes. At this time, I would like to name Murphy Terrell, Tony Hansen, Gary Rundy, and Michael Kaplan as the 4 people I am aware of who have made their name, put their name forward for the committee. And as of this meeting, we have
Patty McMahon.
Patty McMahon offering her services also.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Thank you. All right, for discussion, Shannon, go ahead and make your comment.
It's a question, actually. If I understand it, Sam, you've said that SWNI has 60 days to comply. And I'm curious, we haven't reviewed budget projections for this month, but at this time, I don't know if SWNI has 60 days where we will have staffing. Is that a requirement, or should the timeline be increased for responsiveness given that?
Well, to answer that question correctly, the ONI standards say on a review such as this, that 60 days from the date the grievance was presented to us, a response is necessary. SWNI's bylaws require that also. So
Does it require a staffed organization at all? Because it's possible that there won't be a staffed organization in 60 days.
I don't think I think it's an obligation we take while we're operating that we are, Shannon. And I also think that whether we have money and staff doesn't matter, because the association is a private nonprofit which operates on its own. And as long as people have volunteered to do this work, the work can be done. Jackie, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Jackie. We're waiting for Jackie to unmute.
I'm sorry. Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you are. Whoops, you just muted yourself.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, I would simply say that we are obligated to follow the standards regardless of whether we are operating in 60 days or not. So I that's my opinion, is that we follow the standards and we carry on.
Okay, I agree. So what I'm going to do is ask for a roll call vote to go quickly to approve this group of 5 people to serve on the grievance committee. Janet, do you want to call the roll?
Yes, I'll repeat the motion. Sam Pearson moved to form a dispute resolution committee consisting of the following volunteers: Murphy Terrell, Tony Hansen, Gary Rundy, Michael Kaplan, and Patty McMahon. Steve Molinex seconded. So votes in favor or opposed to the formation of this committee with these members: Steve?
Yes.
And Sam?
yes.
And Teddy?
Yes.
And Janet is a yes. Katie?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Is Becky with us? Becky Lilliquist? I haven't seen her.
Not yet. I haven't
Not
seen
yet.
her yet.
Okay. Fran Laird?
Yes.
And Marianne?
Yes.
And George Vranos?
Yes.
And Kendall?
Yes.
And Tatiana?
Sure if I should abstain or,
Uh,
I mean, I am the president of Hillsdale Association.
I don't know the answer. I suppose to be on the safe side, abstention is a good idea.
Yeah, I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Jackie Phillips?
Yes.
And Claire Carter, has Claire joined us?
Not yet.
Okay. And no, Eric Lavaki. And we have Mike Charles.
Yes.
And Maria T. Mai.
Yes.
And Shannon Hiller Webb.
Yes.
And is Anna Friedhoff with us? No?
Not yet.
Okay, no Charlie yet.
No
And-
Charlie yet.
And has Debbie Hall joined us?
She has not.
Okay. And Diane Victoria?
Yes.
Gary Rundy?
Yes.
And Leslie Cole?
Les-
Yes, I'm not on the Hillsdale board. I'm in the Hillsdale Neighborhood Association, but I'm not on the board, so I can say yes.
Okay, thank you.
Fair
And,
enough.
yeah, no Kim yet. Patty McMahon?
Abstain?
Catherine Christensen?
Yes.
Murphy?
Yeah, yes.
And Dawn Bach?
Don, are you here?
Abstain.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Janet, I do notice that Claire Carter is in attendance.
Oh, thank you. Claire, did you hear where we are in this vote?
Claire, you need to unmute and let us know whether you heard the motion, so you feel like you can vote on this, or whether you want to abstain because you weren't present. But you have to unmute to tell us. While we're waiting for her to unmute, Sylvia, did you get a count for that first vote?
I have 19 yeses and 3 abstentions.
I
And
had
one
one
no.
no.
And 1 no.
And one. So I came up with 18 yeses. I'm going to recount that again, just to.
Who's the no?
Okay. And Lee, is there any chance you can unmute Claire? I can't do it.
I just tried. I can go ask to unmute. And I did.
Okay. Well,
Claire could just thumbs up, I guess, if she, do we have a visual on Claire?
I don't. Let's see where she is.
It's moot in any event. It passed, so let's get on with things.
Well, we don't have.
There. She's unmuted.
Okay, Claire, did you hear the question? Claire,
She
we're
wasn't-
asking whether
She
you want to
wasn't
vote.
unmuted. She wasn't unmuted, ever.
Okay,
I can't unmute. I can only ask her to unmute.
right. Okay, we're going to leave it the vote the way it is. We've asked 3 times. She hasn't been able to join us for this vote, so we'll go ahead with the vote as is. Is there anybody left that needs to be asked on the vote, Janet?
No, I think we've got the
Okay.
full vote.
Do we need to explain to her how to unmute herself? Or?
We could.
Maybe
Hey,
she's.
I have 19 yeses and 3 abstentions on that last vote. And Sylvia, do you want to recount the vote on the minutes again on your numbers?
All right. While they're doing that, Janet has to take minutes, but I think we can start with Teddy and start our financial reports. And Teddy, will you tell Sylvia which report you'd like to go up first?
Leslie,
Yeah.
one more on the grievance. A grievance has been filed against SWNI. It came in today. I will be going through the procedures to determine whether or not said item grievance is good, and see if we can follow through the sections which describe mediation and so on. So just to let everybody know, when the November 30th meeting comes about, and following the 14-day procedure, we'll need to go through the procedures again of putting together a dispute resolution committee. So you may be hearing from me in the next week or so.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that you brought that to our attention, and we will address it on the 30th.
Is it possible to share what the grievance is and just at a high level?
It's an objection to how our parks are being used. That's the most I can say.
To our motion to support Native American free use of parks. So he feels that we are discriminating by asking for the park waiver.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right. So go ahead, Teddy. You've got the floor. You have to unmute though.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to pull up here my summary. But in short, does anyone have any questions on the summary as it was sent out by Sylvia earlier?
Please note the fine print to not share on social media.
Marie, you're speaking, you're not recognized by the chair and you're not a board member.
I know what that is. Okay. Teddy, do you want your written report up, or is this?
To not share on social media.
Marie, you're a guest. This is your
I don't-
first recognition of disruptive behavior. Please do not speak. You're a guest. Thank you.
I have myself on mute, so I'm confused.
You're not on mute, Marie. We can all hear you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Ted.
Okay, yeah, so let's pull up the summary and I'll ask if anyone has any questions on it. So we'll start here. Does anyone have any questions on the summary?
Let's let them read a minute and then I'll check to see if there are hands, Teddy.
Okay.
You want to move it up a little bit, Sylvia? There you go. Okay, I don't see any hands.
Okay, if there are no questions, we'll just go at a high level and we'll step through the details fairly quickly since there are no questions on it. So at a very high level, our balance in the bank is about $50,000 at the end of October. Again, this is end of October report. This is not this morning or this evening. And we've committed to keeping SWNI staff about 75% time.
Right.
And we'll review this again at the end of the month. So to ensure that we're being fiscally responsible and extending out the life of the organization as long as we can. Can we pull up the balance sheet, please?
Sure.
All right, just a couple of quick highlights on the balance sheet. Current asset in the prepaid account, prepaid expense category, that's for storage unit. And if we look at accounts payable, that would cover our lawyer Simon Wang's fee of $5,000. Renee Starr, $250, and phone bill of $146 or about $147. Another quick highlight would be payroll liabilities sits at about $7,900. And just wanted to point out our restricted board account now reads 0 as we've transferred the balance in that account to the operations account. Any questions on that?
Sylvia, did you want to comment on payroll? I guess not. Okay. Let me check for hands. Okay. Katie Daly has her hand up. Go ahead, Katie.
Hey, Teddy, thanks. 2 questions. One, the PPP loan forgiveness was kind of in hold because Umpqua didn't have their ducks in a row. What is the status of that loan forgiveness application with Umpqua Bank?
So it's not I don't know that it was Umpqua's ducks in a row as much as that, as far as the program is still, there's still so much uncertainty in the way what the process is for that from the federal government.
So what's the status of the forgiveness?
We don't have a green, I mean, we haven't been forgiven.
Okay.
Applications in the pipeline.
Okay. And the second question is now that the forensic audit is out, does that mean that Simon's billing fees associated with that work have ended?
No.
No. Well, Leslie can speak a bit more to it, but
All right.
okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Teddy and Katie. The Simon was engaged to work with us until the completion of the audit, and that included discussing with the city the results of the audit. So I guess what I'm saying to you is the results just came out. We haven't had much of a discussion with the city yet, and we have him as available to talk to the city on that issue as we choose.
Okay. Has there been communication with the city? I realize it's been short, 3 days, but has there been any communication with the city yet about this?
The city attorney advised Simon that the report was available, and Simon looked at it and asked the city attorney if we could correct many of the mistakes that are in the report. And the city attorney said they were going to release it just as it was, but didn't say that we can't come back and point out all the things that are incorrect.
So the only communication has been through attorneys with the city?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sylvia?
Mr. Correct. So the statement that the board received was also sent out to the mayor and city council members yesterday. The same statement that's in our folder tonight and was sent to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot's been going on. I'd forgotten. Shannon, you have your hand up, and then Bruce is after you.
Hi, thank you. Can you please tell me the total amounts that have been billed by Simon to date? And then also, can you please explain who Renee is and why we're paying her for what service?
Sylvia, do you want to do that, or you want me to do it?
I can show you. So Renee Starr is an HR attorney. We consulted her when we were reviewing our personnel policies. And she's been advising us on those. So we were hoping to get to that. Let's see. I was thinking it was profit and loss under restricted. No, we want operations. So.
Wow.
Yeah, hold on.
Kindle Kick.
So the 11,852 is the total in professional services, and I believe all of that assignment except for the 250.
So that's he's billed through to date.
Just through
11.
Oh, that's through the end of October.
Through the end of October, he has billed $11,000, and so you're stating that there's about $4,000 that remain that he has not billed time for.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
Okay, Bruce, you have your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, just a quick question on, it says on current liabilities, it has 66,300. Is that the money we're waiting to get reimbursed?
Yes, that's the PPP.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and continue, Teddy?
Just want to correct that statement. There is not that we're not waiting to be reimbursed, right? It's a matter of it sits in as a liability because it is a loan until the time in which it's forgiven, right? So it sits in that liability account. That makes sense?
Bruce, do you have any other questions you want to ask about the PPP money?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Teddy.
I had a question, but I can't figure out how to hit the hand button.
All right, I can see your face and your hand, so go ahead, Diane.
Teddy, I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought like 2 meetings ago, the topic of this PPP loan came up, and I was under the impression, maybe wrong, that that this was being forgiven. That was how it was sort of represented. Is that
Okay.
Is it not forgiven? Because I was thinking that it had been forgiven.
So we've
on
applied
that
for
thing.
forgiveness, and we expect it to be forgiven, but we haven't been officially forgiven, as in because the Treasury Department has simply not finalized whatever, dotted all the I's and T's for the program and figure out how they're gonna run the whole forgiveness process.
Okay. And how long well, 2 follow-ups on that. How long will it take for us to find that out, or is that beyond what you can answer because you don't know? And
It's about 90 days.
Okay.
That's what they said in the program at the time we applied for it. And the 90 days haven't run yet, Diane.
Okay. And then the forensic audit thing and the results of that, is that going to cause any problems with getting it forgiven? Does anyone have an idea?
It shouldn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Shannon, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I guess that actually follows directly after Diane's line of thinking. I mean, I don't think there's any guarantees that the PPP is going to be forgiven. And so what measures should the organization, or is the organization, taking in the event that it's not forgiven?
The loan is against the organization. So in the event that it's not forgiven and the organization dissolves, presumably the loan follows the organization itself. So what exactly is your question?
Well, given the current circumstances with us not having enough to cover that loan expense, what are we going to do to mitigate it if it's not? I mean, shouldn't there be a risk mitigation plan? It's already been spent. We have no guarantees it's going to be forgiven, and we have less than the amounts we've used. So I guess what are the next steps if it's not? And where's the 90 days end? So like, when is the discussion about, in 90 days? What's that date?
Let me help answer some of these questions. When we applied for the PPP, we also looked at when we're likely to get notice of forgiveness. We finished using the PPP at the end of August, and the information that we got from the banks that was tied into the original application is that we could expect some kind of response from the SBA within 90 days of the end of the use of the PPP. However, since that time, a number of bulletins have come out, which have come through to us from the bank, which have said that the SBA and the government haven't quite decided yet how they want to roll the forgiveness out. And I take that to mean that we might not know within 90 days, it might be longer. As long as we use the PPP as it was directed, which we did, it's my understanding we are more than likely to get our loan forgiven, plus any interest that is accrued on it while we're waiting for the government to make up its mind. So that, I think that, because I've been watching this closely and following news stories, I think that's the most current analysis of it that we can give. Patty, I can see your hands up. Go ahead.
Oh, I think you've answered it, but my understanding is it's not just SWNI that's in this case. It's all businesses, it's everybody in this state that applied for these loans. Actually, my son's business is in the same boat. And it's nothing to do, there are criteria for those loans. You meet the criteria and it's just a holdup, like you guys are saying, from above. And the fact that what if it doesn't get reviewed, it would be such an abnormal, it would be like the government changed the program. And so to have a risk mitigation, I think would be uncalled for at this point.
All right, Tatiana, you have your, oh, Teddy, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
I
Tatiana,
just wanted to offer, hi, I have experience with this with quite a number of clients as well, and I can just offer the following commentary that first of all, the deadline for the final deadline for filing the forgiveness applications is December 30th of this year. So not much is going to be reviewed until then. The regulations for reviewing the forgiveness have not been finalized, and it might take another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. And finally, when originally when this program was formulated and the regulations for it formulated, those regulations in the CFR state that basically this loan is forgivable unless certain gross violations take place. So basically, it's just a matter of showing the correct paperwork as we have done, and as well as there is also another possibility. Sometimes if the government might find that there is a certain percentage of perhaps non-compliance, only a small percentage of that might not be forgiven. So we are, the risk is very remote, unlikely totally. It's just, but it'll take forever to actually have this adjudicated.
So you have with 90 days or forever as a possible.
Yeah, well, it's 90 days. Now this 90 days has shifted to an unknown barrier. So 90 days from where they themselves don't know. And so probably won't know for a long time.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Teddy, do you want to continue with the financial report?
Sure. Let's go down to the P&L.
You want the combined with both restricted and or just operations?
Let's, I'll just talk through a bit of it. If anyone has any questions, we can go through. Starting with combined, we can just look, contributions year to date are at 9,700, with a large majority of that coming from individuals.
Yeah.
Which is.
These are donations you're talking about?
Right, which has helped us extend our staff and operations as an organization. And if we look at month of October, report 1, again, contributions in October were 7,600, 7,645 to be exact. And just a quick note, about $1,000 in donations were mentioned or are going to be mentioned in October cash flow, but was not received until the first week of November, so they won't show up in the in these reports here. All right. Payroll vacation accrued, which is what we owe in the event of closing our doors or terminating everyone, sits at 7,300 at the end of the month.
We have an updated number when we get to cash flow projections.
Right. Now, cash flow and balance sheet and P&L are 3 different sort of financial statements with governing rules. So yeah, any questions on these reports?
Don, you have your hand up. Don Bach.
You're muted.
Hang on.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you. Quick question. Payroll taxes, how are those handled, and are they being paid current or are they accrued?
Being paid. So you pay your taxes on every payroll, and then federal and state go in on the quarter. But yeah, it's all in here.
Okay, but who's got the money for that's accrued for the quarter? Reason I ask is, of all the stuff that's on this thing, I think we as board members could be held liable for payroll taxes. Beyond that, the rest of it, I think, would just be sloughing off. But payroll taxes, we could potentially be held liable for. So who's handling the accrual? Where's the money that's set aside for payroll? Is that in our bank account, or is that in the people that are managing our payroll?
In our bank account. So it's the payroll. It comes out of it's calculated on the paycheck by paycheck.
Okay, so they have, there's an accrual in here for payroll.
Right. So Prime Pay has.
Coming out of our cash on hand. Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
On a monthly basis. Yes.
You said,
well, wait a minute. You said monthly basis and then we pay it quarterly. So.
Well, I'm sorry. You're right. It's per paycheck.
Which is it?
Yeah, I think it's per paycheck.
Per paycheck.
It's this is Charlie.
And it goes to the payroll service, and they're the ones responsible.
Okay, Charlie's joined us, although I can't see your name yet. Charlie, did you wish to continue and comment on this?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say that the payroll service at each payroll period takes money for the pay as well as for the related taxes. Then they will hold those taxes. In some cases, the tax is due within 3 business days. In other cases, it's not due until the end of the quarter.
I appreciate that. I understand it now.
Okay.
So, in short, we covered our liability.
Do we have any other questions on this operation statement here? Seeing none, shall we move on? Do you want to move to cash flow projections, Teddy?
Let's do it.
Okay. And Lee, do you want to explain the latest information?
About accrued vacation?
No, talk about what's going on in November and accrued vacation and some of the other numbers.
Okay. Well, October, we turned out pretty much on the nose. Now, as you know, remember we had 50,000 in the account, but there's uncleared transactions. So that leaves us at the month about 39,000. You know, plus or minus, I don't know, 1,000 without having Nancy spend a lot of time. So November, here's our November projection. And remember in November, we're asking people to do 25% reduction in their payroll. Please note that in October and November, our contributions are up. We had one of the Civic Life small grants that we had to pay off some. Otherwise, that's where we are at this point. Any questions? And then we can talk about December.
Can you talk about accrued vacation?
Yeah, scroll down just a little bit, Sylvia. So this is as of 11/15/2020, 6,862. Notice the rent is down there, the deferred rent. But we have that, if you go back to the top part of the spreadsheet, we have that we're paying that in January, January. If you look at the line 21 for rent, we included paying that in January.
Okay, so let me check the and see if there are questions about this. Yes, Leslie Paul Cospo, you have some questions?
Yes, I was back onto personnel and payroll. I'm wondering if we have a fund for unemployment insurance when people are laid off and apply. Does SWNI have to fund some of that?
Yes.
Sylvia, do you have an answer on that?
Sorry, repeat that.
Sylvia, do you have an answer on whether there is a fund for unemployment insurance?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We pay the unemployment insurance, the taxes.
Goes to state, does it not?
That's state accident insurance.
Okay, Don has a question.
Well, just on
Leslie, did we?
unemployment insurance, the way I understand it, it's paid basically to the state unemployment group, and then if they haven't filed unemployment, they take it out of there.
Right.
What I have is on your December projection, what's the staff levels? At 75 or 50?
Well, we have to decide. We did.
What are the numbers here? That's what I'm trying to ask.
We put in a 25% reduction for December, but the board hasn't approved that yet. So
I don't understand. So we're looking at the numbers. Can you move it? I can't tell which month is December.
Go up a little bit, Sylvia.
Move it down. There you go.
Okay, so December, now drop it down so we can see the bottom. We've got $4,000 left in the end of December.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Leslie, did you get your question answered?
So that was it.
Not really. What I was asking was, is there a fund that is set aside for payment in proportion that the state asks for businesses and nonprofits when people file for unemployment? There's a portion that the company or the entity has to pay.
Right, but if we are no longer in existence, we don't have that. That's all fully covered under the unemployment insurance at the state level.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. I think that takes care of all the questions on cash flow. I'm just going to summarize it really quickly. We've been trying to keep track of how our vacation time has been used. More vacation time will be used next week during the holiday. So we expect that our vacation accrual dollars will be reduced by the people that take some vacation next week. And so by the 30th, we should have a pretty clear idea of what exposure we might have for paying unemployment insurance should we need to go there. And we've spent quite a bit of time on figuring out how much money, given our monthly bills and bills that haven't been paid or are likely to come due, and have decided that at this moment, on this date, we'll have about $22,900 or $22,563 to carry over into December for December payroll and monthly expenses. We are meeting on the 30th. We hope to have additional numbers on donations and that kind of thing by that time, so the board can make a decision about what they want to do in December. For paying payroll, we want to meet all of our expenses, but the discussion will be largely around paying payroll. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Let's move on from financials, unless you have something more, Teddy, you want to say?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. We have Sylvia's executive report, which she has written, which is in the board folder. Any highlights you want to tell us about, Sylvia?
Well, one, I did want to mention that the Portland Parks and Recreation approved SWNI enrolling in what they're calling the rent deferral program. And the end date for that is February 28th. So actually they're saying that we wouldn't have to pay rent until February 28th for the March 1st rent. And if we have funding, then we can always pay it early. But this is their new program that we've been approved for. So I just wanted to point that out. Most of this we touched on. We are growing our subscriptions. I think last month we had about 1,056. Now we have 1,862. Lee and I went to the Ash Creek Neighborhood Association, and they wanted a little bit background on the beginning of the Equity and Inclusion Committee. And since Lee was a founding member, he was there. We talked a little bit about the Patty Lee Leadership Fund, and they were encouraging us if we can do some equity inclusion trainings to use some of that funding for that. And Lee and I'll go to the equity inclusion meeting on Monday night to kind of give them an update on that. We did a little poll on the neighborhood small grants, and the Ena Festival or Beaver Festival, Laura organized for October 12th, and she had speakers virtually on for that event, and she's looking into getting the video so that we can post that and share it. The rest of the folks, the grant for the Jackson Sunschool program and the series for the English classes for English learners, they're going to come back after winter break and hopefully put those into play. Neighborhood House is also planning to conduct their health and wellness programs for immigrant seniors via Zoom. The schools committee meets on Thursday night, and they're going to discuss the best ways to support students during the COVID-19. So they'll come up with some updates. And Marie's here. We haven't heard back from South Burlingame if they've made any adjustments to their grant proposal. So.
South Burlingame hasn't had any outreach to us, but Marie is the contact point. We did the fiscal sponsorship. So if you're expecting a response from South Burlingame, no one's been contacted at South Burlingame.
Okay, we sent it to Marie. If Marie's not getting it, I'll find out why.
No, Marie is not part of South Burlingame. We are the fiscal sponsor. So if she's present and can speak, then she would know more than South Burlingame because we have not been contacted directly.
Okay, I understood she was the project manager.
She is. She's on the call. If you'd like her to speak to it, she can.
You can do that separately. Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, and then I just also wanted to remind everyone, I think everybody has been sent an email by me for the neighborhood chairs. We had the Wilson High School renaming committee came to the Equity Inclusion Committee meeting last month, and they also have been working with our schools committee to reach out to parent-teacher associations to get involvement about the renaming. And I included their website, and they're right now recruiting suggestions for that name. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to our committee reports. And we have a report and motion from the Transportation Committee. Thank you for putting it up, Sylvia. Everybody can take a look at it. Catherine, would you like to speak to it? And Dawn, would you like to speak to it? Okay, Tatiana, you have your hand up. Is it on the transportation motion or something else?
No, I just wanted to ask Sylvia if the rent is going to be actually forgiven altogether or just accrued.
No, yeah, we have to pay it back.
All right, thank you.
All right, so who wants to speak on the transportation motion?
Would you like to cover it or would you like me to?
Why don't you cover it for this group? Yeah, why don't you read it and give some background to it before they vote on it?
You as in me? Okay, Dawn had asked in the SWNI Transportation Committee meeting that we move to have SWNI send a letter of support for the Southwest Trails Portland PDX grant request of ODOT to largely complete the Hillsdale to Lake Oswego Trail.
And that's the purpose of the motion?
Yes, and Stephen Lewis seconded it. We discussed it and voted with 7 of our members present voting yes and 2 no votes. And Don had submitted a letter that he recommended be the format of the letter that SWNI submits. That's on the next page.
Actually,
oh, I think it's at the 10th page. Sorry, down way at the bottom. But I don't think the letter actually describes any more content to this or background for this motion. I'd be happy to read the background if you want to, or we can read it ourselves quietly.
Okay, Sylvia, help me out. We have a motion from a committee. Do we need a second or does it just go for
No.
discussion to the
No
floor?
second is required for a
Okay.
committee motion.
All right, so I'm going to ask for discussion on the motion. Katie?
Yeah, I know, Don, you're the founder of Southwest Trails and you built that 501c3. Is there gonna, I mean, here we are asking the city to give money to your organization, the organization. And I'm just wondering if that is something SWNI should be doing.
Well, number one, the Southwest Trails has asked for a grant that would provide funding to parks and to PBOT, which would basically help improve this trail. PBOT would administer the part that would be on the right-of-way on 19th, and parks would administer the part that is there. This basically, you know, I'm the advocate now for Southwest Trails. The president now is Doug Rogers, and basically we're trying to just move ahead and implement what has been approved by SWNI over the years as part of the urban trails plan. It's basically, we're moving ahead to try to move things for the community. And we're a pretty active group, and it seems to me it'd be very appropriate to move ahead and say, yeah, we support moving ahead and getting a improved trail for the community.
Okay, I see Mary Ann's Fitzgerald's hand is up. Mary Ann, would you like to comment?
Yes, yes, Don, I'll ask you the same question I asked you the other night. Is the Hillsdale to Lake Oswego Trail in the comp plan approved by the city, or does it have the Portland Pathways permit that's required by PBOT in order to construct new trails? I didn't see PBOT much.
My understanding, it is in the comp plan. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days. And they further, the city permits will be issued when if we get to the construction. Parks will not have to get a permit other than E-zone permit for their part. Basically, we've got a new bridge at Boone's Ferry, which we were instrumental in getting about 600,000 allocated to improve the trail under Boone's Ferry, so we don't have to walk at grade across there. We've been instrumental in getting about 300,000 in grants from Metro for Oregon State Parks to build a significant portion of the trail in the Oregon State Park property that's north of Arnold, and that'll include a connection to Arnold Street to help people in that part. And then further north, this grant would provide some funds to City of Portland Parks to build the trail that would go from a new trail that would connect up from the trail in Marshall Park to Taylor's Ferry. And then the final piece would be improvements to the trail that goes from north of Safeway at Moss to Capitol Hill Road, which is needs some improvement. That's what it's about, and this is a way of moving forward. And in my opinion, to answer the question whether it's appropriate for SWNI, in my opinion, SWNI ought to be serving the community. No matter if there's another organization that comes up with something that we can support, we ought to do that. And trails is just one of these things. I made this motion from the HPPA because I'm the representative from them on that committee, and the HPPA is supportive. The people, the legislative commission, the commissioner, the representative and senator both written letters of support. Metro's written a letter of support. Parks has written a letter of support. PBOT's written a letter of support. HPPA has written a letter of support. I don't know, I probably missed a couple, but we've got a lot of support already. We're just adding SWNI to that list.
Okay, I see that Claire Carter has her hand up. Claire, do you have a question?
Yeah, Dawn, I saw that the Transportation Committee passed the motion with 7 yes votes and 2 no votes. What were the no votes concerns?
You can ask Mary Ann, she was one of them.
Ah, Mary Ann, what's your concern? Come on, out with it.
Yes, there have been some controversies over building the new trails, some in Katie Daly's neighborhood, Arnold Creek. And I looked at the Portland Pathways website, and the Markham Neighborhood Trail hasn't been approved yet because they haven't resolved the comments that they've received. And so my concern is that Don's a good salesman. We need ways to get around.
but there was a very good reason why the city of Portland adopted the Portland Pathways program. And I disagree with Don that we should just get the money now and beg forgiveness later and just figure out how to get the permits. I feel a lot more confident. I did not see the letters of support, but I didn't look for them either, and you didn't provide them. So I don't know. I just noticed that the grant application mentions the Metro Regional Trail quite a bit, but it barely mentions Peabody at all. So I was nervous enough about the permit process and the new trails that I voted no, and I intend to vote no again tonight.
So Katie, what's your problem with the trails in the
Claire, you don't get to talk back and forth. You get called on, okay?
Sorry.
So Marianne answered your question. We have two different points of view here about whether SWNI should write a letter in support of the trails program or not. And we have another person who has a question, who's Tatiana Lifshitz. Tatiana, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I just wanted to say that since it has now pretty much been determined that the COVID pandemic is going to continue until June 2022, before everyone is vaccinated and so on, I've been told by the city of Portland the last few days that they are looking for building and a more expansive system of trails because people need to walk safely, and that's going to be a tremendous improvement for lives of many people who are not able to go to the gyms anymore, and the gyms have been shut down again, and it looks like this is going to continue for quite some time. And not only this year, but next year. So they are actually reevaluating their priorities, and they will be very thankful if we can move forward with this program.
Okay, thank you, Tatiana. We have 3 more hands of people that haven't spoken to this issue yet, and we'll start with Catherine Christensen.
So is there a marketing representative that can speak to this as to why they were concerned about the funding or the support from SWNI for this funding?
No representative from Markin here at this meeting.
Okay, I'm going to try to sort of give you an idea of what John Gibbon was speaking to. And it has to do with the alignment of the Taylor's Ferry crossing for this project and the trail system. And I think there are some issues with some of the neighbors on one of the streets that parallels Taylor's Ferry and getting their approval of trail passing through their neighborhood or something to that order. And that was the concern he had. And I think that's something that Dawn and he can work offline to address and resolve rather than hold up if we choose to have SWNI vote to support this measure or this motion.
Thank you. Murphy, I see that you would like to comment on this.
Yes, hi, thank you. So is there an ETA when this might be built and or finished? Don?
Don or Catherine can answer that question.
Either.
So basically, this is Don. The 2 points. The time frame is they won't even award the grant for another year. They have, I think we have about 6 years to complete it after that. And the part that we were talking about, let me explain the issue with regard to the trail coming up from Taylor's Ferry. Parks has acquired some land that would basically connect from the north part of Marshall Park east of 18th Place. Now, if you've walked down 18th Place, you'll know that's an extremely dangerous street. So Parks acquiring this land makes it a lot safer to move from the new bridge that they built in Oil Creek in Marshall Park up to Taylor's Ferry. We hit Taylor's Ferry just east of 17th. So the question then is, and you know Peabody is going to be very slow about building sidewalk, and it's extremely expensive when you have to do either cut into the hillside and do retaining walls or fill on the other lower end where there's a drop off to make a walking area. We got either a choice of having 839 feet over up to 19th Street or 136 feet or something like that to 17th. So what we proposed was, rather than anticipate that we'll get the long distance improvements, we would put it up 17th, which is a very short step, and then walk on Orchid to 19th. The point is, it's a lot safer for people to walk on Orchid than it is on Taylor's Ferry. And if we can get the money to do 19th, I personally prefer 19th. But feasibly, if we're talking about trying to get people around, which we are in terms of doing it safely, then it's important that we be able to give them the best option available. And the best option, in my view, at this point would be Orchid. If people could have their own choice and do what way, we could leave the signs off and people just kind of find their way. I don't think that's a wise way to do it. If we can agree on a route that we can get some pressure on Peabody, we might well get the sidewalk segment we need on Taylor's Ferry and the crossing, because they're going to specify where the crossing goes. We've asked for a crossing at 19th, and at 19th, they've said, no, we can't have it because there's not enough sight distance. So, it's a complicated thing. We don't have to sort it out now. It's not going to be funded by Peabody for a long time. The thing is, we need to be able to be thinking ahead and organize this so we actually get something done. What's happened in the past, we've had fragmented pieces going along here and there, but we haven't really addressed the whole thing in total, and now we're trying to finish that up. There's one other piece we built. Southwest Trails actually funded and built the Rasbach Crossing, which is a component of this that's across the Stevens Creek.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to take one more comment and then we're going to vote. Mr. Charles, Michael Charles, did you want to comment or ask a question?
Yes. Hi, Don. This is Mike. I actually live really close to what you're talking about on Taylor's Ferry and 17th. And that place, it makes sense to have the crossing there because that's where Portland Parks just purchased that land to extend the commercial park, and that's where the trail would come out. So it's perfect sense. But I did notice in your document, you said that there was no plan to have anything like a pedestrian crossing there. That is a very dangerous stretch of Taylor's Ferry. There's a curve and cars come barreling around that curve. So you might want to think about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we've discussed this about as thoroughly as we can at this moment. So we need to take a vote. Janet, do you want to call the roll?
Yes, I'll call the roll. This is.
And say the motion again.
Yes, this is the SWNI will send a letter of support for the Southwest Trails PDX grant to request ODOT to largely complete the Hillsdale to Lake Oswego Trail. This is coming forward from the Transportation Committee. No second is required. Steve Molinex.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Teddy.
Yes.
Janet is a yes. Katie.
No.
And Bruce.
Yes.
Becky Lilliquist, I don't think has joined us.
She hasn't.
No. Fran Laird.
Yes.
And Marianne.
No.
And George Franos.
Yes.
And Kendall Kick.
Yes.
Tatiana.
Yes.
And Jackie.
No.
And Claire Carter.
Claire?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay. And Mike Charles.
Yes.
And Maria T. Mai.
Yes.
Okay. And Shannon Hiller Webb.
No.
And I don't think Anna Friedhoff has joined us. Is that correct?
She hasn't.
She hasn't.
And I
Okay.
haven't seen Kim yet either.
Oh, I think Kim is here. Kim's here.
Oh, good. Sorry, Kim.
We've got Charlie Van Rossen.
Yes.
Okay. And Debbie Hall. Has Debbie joined us?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Diane Victoria.
No.
And Gary Rundy.
Yes.
Okay. And Leslie Paul.
Yes.
And Kim Silverman.
I'm going to abstain.
And Patty McMahon.
Yes.
And Catherine Christensen.
Yes.
Murphy Terrell.
Yes.
And Don Bach.
Yes.
Okay. Sylvia and I will count. Sylvia, do you have your, we'll count right now.
While you're counting, and we'll come back to you, we're going to move on to the Land Use Committee, who has some comments to make for the whole board. Go ahead, Gary.
Yes, if you could pull up the quick report, and I've used large font so that members here tonight could take a quick look. We just held our meeting was last night, so I put together a quick report. We had 7 neighborhood associations present, and we went over House Bill 2001, shelter to housing, and neighborhood update round robins. And what I want to do is scroll down. We're going to leave House Bill 2001. We're going to scroll down to keep going to shelter to housing. So this was our big presentation from Al Burns at BPS. And here's a couple quick takeaways. Group living homes, those are homes with more than 7 bedrooms to be allowed by right in multi-dwelling zones. And what they're going to propose to do is take away the conditional use permits and other footnoted limitations. Group living homes in single family zones are going to remain under conditional use permit, subject to floor area ratios, keep the buildings in line with RIP middle housing dwellings. All of this we've known now for one whole cycle from our October to November meeting. And so we called in the project manager just to make sure everything that we are reading about shelter to housing, that we understood it correctly. Okay, so let's scroll down a little more. So here's one: the outdoor shelters can be created on private properties. In last month's update, I had mistakenly thought they could only be on some type of public property situation. And then we really got hit with a couple of things from Al Burns. He told us that the very latest input from activist groups is to allow outdoor shelters in local parks. He said, however, that is not going to get into the current draft proposal, which is going to be turned open to the public on November 25th. All right, so we had a little more discussion, and the major area of contention, was allowing tiny homes on wheels and RVs to be parked in single family residential zones and converted to permanent housing. We had to work hard to keep everybody in their seats over this one. Al was very transparent though. He said, if I would have met with you guys last week, he goes, you wouldn't have seen this. He said, these are things that are coming down. He was challenged. Where in the hell and who in the hell allowed you to drop this into the package at such a late notice? And he just said, came from above. So, basically prior to this, we read the whole package and we understood that they were going to be placed in clusters in, church parking lots and other areas. Couple of things, these are not buildings, so they can't be regulated by any building code. And a tiny homes builders pushing a business model to match with client and homeowners to do deals. And our basic, feedback was this doesn't sound like it, that they're working for a typical person transitioning out of the shelter housing. And that's the bulk of shelter to housing continuum. They're rewriting the codes for the 3 stages of shelter housing. This could just turn out to be a typical renter seeking a true low-cost rent option. And so you can imagine we felt this could turn into a free-for-all, no regulations, since these units are on wheels and they're regulated by Department of Transportation. And then finally, we said it totally defeats the purpose of reintroducing group living in single-family residential zones as a means of transitioning from the shelter housing to permanent housing. So anyhow, that's all we've got. The whole thing is on a hot timeline. They're going to release it on November 25th, and there's going to be 2 hearings in front of the PSC. So we've got until 5 p.m. on December 15th to submit any public input. We decided not to burden the SWNI board trying to hot issue through a motion. So instead, we've taken to circulating bullet points. Collins View jumped on it. They're my overachievers. They already submitted their letter in writing to the project team concerning some of these, these finer points that are coming up late in the game for shelter to housing. So, the whole idea is it's just going to be a letter writing campaign. And we'll reach out. Again, I said we had 7 of our neighborhoods on our call. I'll take the responsibility to reaching out to the presidents of the remainder outfits and see if we can, put letters in. We felt that it would be more letters coming from individuals in the neighborhoods would just be a better way to go here, especially with the holidays and the fact that all of this is too compressed to drag a motion in front of SWNI and have SWNI write a letter. Anyone on the board opposed to this this tactical plan? Again, there's not opposition to sheltered housing. We see the front end of it as very worthwhile endeavor. If you read my write-up in the upcoming SWNI newsletter, you'll see, very supportive of it. It's just when it came out to our single family residential zones, we thought, okay, we got the group living housing, and we just thought it was a stretch here to start parking RVs and tiny homes on wheels, anywhere and everywhere. So.
No, Gary, we really appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And what I, as chair, would suggest is that we could put out a notice to people about when these meetings are, and perhaps you could chair an open meeting where people from all over, all the different neighborhoods come in and discuss and clarify, so they have the opportunity to write something to the board by the 15th of December is what I think you said. So I would say let me suggest that to you, and then if SWNI can help you in that endeavor, we probably can. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, we're going to move on now because, excuse me, how did the vote come out?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know. And Sylvia, let me know if this is your vote. I had on the vote for the Southwest Trails letter of grant support, yes, 19 votes, 5 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, good. And you both agreed on that, right? On the number.
I'm hearing Sylvia. Yeah, I'm waiting to.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I actually have 18 yes, 6 no's, and 1 abstention. So the no's that I have are Katie Daly.
Yes.
Marianne Fitzgerald, Jackie Phillips, Shannon Hiller-Webb, and Diane Victoria, and Catherine Christensen.
Catherine was a yes.
Catherine, are you here?
Yes, and I was a yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it would be yes 19, the 5 no's that Sylvia talked about, and 1 abstention. I think Kimberlyn Silverman abstained. Yeah.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry.
So we have 25 present for the meeting now, because we had our 2 folks arrive late, and Claire was able to join us as well. So now we're up, I think we're up to 25. present.
Okay, we had 32 in about 20 minutes ago, so I think we're losing
That
a
was
few
with
people.
guests. Yeah, that was with guests.
Right, with guests, excuse me. All right, thank you. We're going to move on to the unfinished business and the discussion of the Marsh-Minnick audit report. We have to complete our meeting this evening by 8:45, which gives us about 15 minutes. We want to share this letter with you that we sent to City Council yesterday afternoon. It's essentially the same letter we sent out to all of you with a copy of the audit. I'm going to try to take as many people as I can on the audit report. If you haven't had a chance to read through it, it is 124 pages. And I call on you and you don't want to comment, that's fine. If you do want to comment on it, you have a minute. And then when we get to 8:45, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. And we will have a chance to meet in small groups on this audit, answer questions, and work our way through it before the next meeting. We're going to offer small group possibilities for those of you who want to ask questions or want to assist SWNI in our endeavor. So I'm going to start with Murphy from Watershed and ask Murphy if she would like to take a minute to comment on the audit.
I don't at this moment. I haven't finished reading it, but I will listen to what other people have to say. No, that's it. Not at this moment.
Okay, Catherine Christensen, I have you next. Would you like to comment on the audit? Have you had a chance to read it?
I've been looking through and I'm going to pass at this time. I haven't
Okay.
spent enough time on it.
Let's see. Patty McMahon, would you like to comment?
Well, I did read the whole thing. I feel I was honestly surprised of the quality of this result. I mean, it was kind of embarrassing. So anyway, bottom line, the executive summary, in my opinion, is so unclear. You can't really understand what the findings were. You have to interpret some things, but as I understand it, as I was reading through this thing, they're labeling a forensic audit and commingling it with quote unquote a risk audit, a performance audit, or what have you. And I think the other thing is it's not clear when they are giving their information, what time period are they really talking about? They'll say, go back to the source reference. In my opinion, there's a lot to be looked at and evaluated. But the basic message is, doesn't appear that there was any fraud or anything. And after the management tools were put in place, there was nothing that happened. And so to have 124 pages, I'm telling you, I'm just disappointed, I guess. We have spent—
Patty, that's 1 minute. Sorry, this is Janet. That was 1 minute. Sorry, it goes quickly.
Yeah, I know it does.
Okay, Kim, you're next on the list. Do you want to comment on the audit report?
No, I haven't finished reading it yet.
Okay. Leslie Pohl, have you had a chance to read it and do you want to comment?
No, I haven't had a chance to read the whole report.
All right. The next person is Gary Rundy.
I haven't had a chance to read the whole report, but from where I've gone to so far, I'm pretty close to agreeing with Patty on what I've observed.
Okay. And Diane Victoria?
I have only read about half of it, so I'll pass.
All right. Then Dawn Bach, have you had a chance to read it?
I read it. My first reaction was, what a recruiting tool for people to work in public sector volunteers. It was,
Yeah, that's true.
there was really a lot of stuff that really didn't apply to what the issues were. That was it, period.
Okay, thank you. Katie Daly, would you like to have a minute to comment on it?
Sure. Thanks. My comments were more about the letter that you'd send out, and that was that attacking an expert is never really a good plan. I mean, getting them to explain this report in detail might be more productive. The other is that the inference that a 2014 IRS audit is anywhere like a forensic audit is misguided. They would have only looked at taxation issues and not anything else. Other than that, it seemed like they were not so much locating fraud in the strict sense, but a failure to apply policies consistently.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Charlie, would you like to comment on this?
Sure. I just want to say, I mean, our neighborhood association, Kim and I were fortunate to be able to attend first part of that. And obviously they see this as being very damning, and they are kind of looking at where do things go from here. And I kind of want to know, I mean, maybe we'll follow up more with this later, but what impact this will have. I've written my response, as you know, and Marsh-Minnick, when you want to talk about expert, they are, let's just say they're fairly far down the totem pole when it comes to expert. A certified public accountant could perform a more detailed examination and probably do it for about a third or a quarter of what Marsh-Minnick was paid. So I would push the city to allow or have SWNI audited by a certified public accountant.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, you're next. Did you want to comment?
No, I've read it and I think it's above my pay grade, but I'll have to think about it a little bit. Thank you.
Fair enough. Fran, did you want to comment?
I just want to say I'm still working my way through it, but from everything I've read, definitely agree with what Patty and Charlie have both said.
All right. Mary Ann, did you want to comment on it?
Yes, and since I was on the board during the early years and president during the early years, I can verify that the document is full of unsubstantiated allegations and uses inflammatory language that seems intent on damaging SWNI's reputation. And I was really, I mean, in several instances, Marsh-Minnick verified that they received documents where, for example, when they talk about the complaint in August of 25/11, there's a claim in there that a decade went through without fixing that complaint, when I specifically told them that we fixed it within 4 weeks on September 28th, and there was in 2011, and there was no mention in that in the report. And about the unauthorized charges to the credit card, I also gave them that information that we did, the SWNI board did talk about it. And there was absolutely no one on the board that considered that embezzlement at all. And no one implicated staff other than the person who went to jail about that issue.
Mary Ann,
So
we're at 1 minute, just to let you know. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay, I'll stop, but we have to rebut.
Thank you, Mary Ann. George, have you had a chance to read the audit report?
I've only really looked at the executive summary, and it doesn't, I really have to look at the whole thing.
All right, thank you. Kendall, did you have something you wanted to comment on?
I just want to say on behalf of the Neighborhood Association, we really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. And although I have not read the entire report, I do feel that it will be, we as a group will be able to get to the bottom of it and everything will be ironed out. Thank you very much, Leslie.
Thank you, Kendall. Shannon, would you like to comment?
Only to say that a minute isn't sufficient to talk about the breadth of concerns in the document. I'll look forward to November 30th.
All right, Tatiana, would you like to comment?
I pretty much would, second Mary Ann, except I wasn't present during that time, but from reading this document, it looks like it's basically studying that embezzlement and the circumstances around it. For what reason, I don't know. It's not a secret, and it makes countless like sweeping statements, overreaching and sweeping statements about without first articulating any reasonable facts that would support that. It's just amazing, and I especially agree with Marianne's term of inflammatory language. It's amazing.
Thank you. That's a minute, Tatiana. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Charles, did you want to comment on the audit?
Yeah, just briefly, Leslie, thank you. I haven't been closely involved in this, so I'm not coming from an area of expertise, but I found that there was a lot of more detail in there than I expected. So I would just say that I would be hesitant to consign this as overall good or overall bad. There's a whole lot of stuff in there that needs unpacking, and some of it's probably bad and some of it might be good. So, we might be able to learn from some of the stuff that's in there. So just want to mention that before we go into more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire Carter, have you had a chance to read the audit?
I have not and have no comments.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Well, we only got it yesterday, right? And it's 124 pages, so I'm not surprised. Jackie Phillips, would you like to comment?
I'm still working through, and I don't think my comments would help anything at this point today. So I reserve.
Thank you. Maria Team I.
Hi, I haven't read it, but I just want to say thank you to all of those that have worked so diligently on getting all the materials and worked tirelessly on this. I don't know what you want to call it, but on this thing that's consuming a lot of our time. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria. All right. Teddy, do you want to comment on the audit?
No, I haven't finished reading it. Yeah, so I won't comment other than my brief sort of reading of it. It's not really clear or concise what they're trying to get across, other than harping on something that happened a long time ago. But
okay, thank you. Sam, would you like to comment on the audit?
It's an interesting read. Other than that, there's a lot of people in City Hall and who've spent a lot of time on this. And for a cost of $66,000 plus all the other times that people have spent on this, it sure seems like we could have used this money, $100,000 plus, to a better use.
Okay, thank you. Steve, would you like to comment?
Sure. Okay, how about just say that, of course, I'm very disappointed, and there's so much that's erroneous in this report, and in a very broad sense, in that, as I think someone else mentioned, that it seems to launch from the point of a case that was settled 10 years ago, and then assume without any strong analysis or even mentioning the improvements that have been made since then. So I think we all have something to be proud of, that we've put all our volunteer time into this organization in service of Southwest Portland. And I think we ought to take a lot of pride in that and rebut the incorrectness of this report.
Thank you, Steve. Janet, would you like to comment?
Well, Steve has spoken my mind. I think every point he just articulated very well, I would agree with, and certainly support for all the volunteers who've invested so much time and energy into SWNI for the past 40 years. So that would be my comment at this time.
Okay, I said we were going to adjourn at 8:45. I just have two quick comments I'll make. First of all, if you really read that report carefully, you'll find that they do not find any facts or provide any evidence that there's been any embezzlement, fraud, abuse, or waste since 2011. So when you read it carefully, you won't find it. So that gives us a clean bill of health in my mind since 2011 in terms of how we've handled our finances. There are a lot of allegations, but no facts or evidence to support those allegations. And so I think that we might be very successful in filing a rebuttal and making sure that city council members understand the weaknesses in this report. But also there's been sort of an innuendo tonight, which is that if we don't get our funding back from the city, we will cease to exist. And the truth is we don't cease to exist. We're separate nonprofits. We can continue to work as an organization just as we've been working. We wouldn't have city money to have a staff, but that doesn't mean this association doesn't stand on firm legal grounds to continue the work that it does in these neighborhoods. And this audit has actually kept us from doing the kind of work that we'd normally do, especially during COVID times. So I am heartened by the fact that there were no allegations of abuse, just political allegations of mismanagement with no facts or evidence to support it. So I want you guys to go off, read it, think about it. We'll call you and form some small groups so that you can ask questions and get your answers hopefully answered, and have a common understanding about how SWNI actually does work and what might need improvement. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? All right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
There's Leslie. One quick question.
Michael? Yes, Michael?
I thought earlier on this evening, somebody said they did a motion for continuing the staff working at 75%, and I didn't hear us have that motion. Did I get that right?
Well, we moved in October at our October meeting to approve staff being paid at 75% this month, all the way through the month. When we have our meeting on the, yes, yeah. When we have the meeting on November 30th, then we have to decide how we'll pay staff in December. Okay. So we're good through the month. That motion has been approved and acted upon. On the 30th, we'll come back, see how much money we have left in our bank account, and then decide what we want to do in December.
Okay.
All right, so we will.
Just for clarity, the cash flow has it at 75%, if I understood it correctly. Is that right?
Right now, yeah, for the cash flow, we put it in as the most optimistic that we could be. Yes, of course.
75, thank you.
Okay. And we will talk about cash flow in these small groups too. So it will be taken care of. So we have a motion to adjourn, a second, and we'll do it one more time. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstaining who would like to stay on into the night?
Which they're welcome to do, right?
And thank you very much for your time and effort. And also for the 124 pages that are ahead of you. It makes for interesting reading, but it's not the truth. It's not who we are. It's not what we've done. So be of good cheer.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.